All for being here. Thank you for coming out. It's a great day. It's to be back here in Iowa. I'm here with two folks I'll introduce right away, which is our two oldest children. As you know, Karen and I have 7 children, and the 2 oldest have been here. My son John and I have been back here in Iowa for just the last couple of days. Elizabeth has been here for a little over a week now, and they're all staying up through Christmas Eve till we're going to head back. But we're here and committed to Iowa, and the family's here. Karen's going to be here next week, and so we're going to make it a good family affair over the holidays here in Iowa. So introduce Elizabeth and John, our 2 oldest, our 20-year-old and 19-year-old. But I'm not here to introduce him. I'm here to introduce somebody else who has something that I'm very excited to hear, and that is Matt Schultz, your great Secretary of State. I got to know Matt back in, well, I guess a little over almost 2 years ago when I first started to make my trips here to Iowa. And Matt was one of the first people I met was out in Council Bluffs. So I'll never forget it. I was at Tish's restaurant.
That's right.
And was there for one of my first meetings, and I had an opportunity to, Matt came early, and he was a councilman in Council Bluffs, and we had an opportunity to spend about a half hour, 40 minutes together talking about his race, and he was at the time running for Secretary of State, and I think he was even in the primary. You were still in the primary at that point, and we got a chance to know each other, and I was just really impressed with this young guy, and I thought, wow, this would be great if Iowa could elect a young dynamic guy here from all the way over in Council Bluffs to a position of that importance. And as you know, we've had a lot of ground since that meeting a couple of years ago, and here we are now, just a few weeks before the Iowa caucus, and all that work of meeting folks at Tish's restaurant and in Council Bluffs to all 99 counties in the state and over 250 town hall meetings. People have asked me, why haven't you started to catch on? I said, well, you haven't been in Iowa for the last week or so, because we are definitely picking up momentum here in the state of Iowa, and frankly across this country. We feel it coming. People have been chatting about it and talking about it. There's no doubt in our minds that we're ready. It's not about having your rise or getting a bubble. It's timing is everything in life, and timing is everything in politics. And we think the timing is going to be just perfect for us to be able to catch that wave at the right time as people start to make their decisions. When I met with Matt, he didn't say, "Oh, I'm with you right away." I mean, he's an Iowan. They take their time to make these decisions. and I know it very, and sometimes painfully well, that people take their time. And you Iowans have a huge responsibility. You have the responsibility of narrowing the field, of basically picking a handful or less of people who have an opportunity to be the nominee of the party. And you usually have a pretty darn big field coming into Iowa and a very small one leaving. And you have that huge responsibility of, in a sense, recommending to the rest of the country who should be on everybody's short list. And I found it to be in some respects grueling, in the sense that the tough questions. I was just in Newton and got hit with a couple of really tough questions. I think they keep coming up with them. Just things that I haven't heard. You think you'd do 250 town hall meetings, you'd have heard it all, but no. It's been that kind of experience, and it makes you a better candidate, and it makes you, I think, a better leader. It makes your ideas better ideas. A lot of the things that we put forward on our economic platform, for example, I learned from going to small town Iowa and hearing the concerns and problems of people economically, of what they're experiencing. So this has been a wonderful experience. People say, "Are you tired?" No, I am energized. I love the interaction that I've had with the people of Iowa. The people here have been terrific. At times slow to decisions, but still terrific and encouraging. Even folks who leave say, "Well, I haven't decided yet," but keep going. Don't be discouraged. Just go out there and keep working hard. He said, you'll be surprised. And we've done that, and we've begun to pick up that critical momentum. And I don't know of anything that, to me, is a greater piece of that momentum than when Matt told me just a few days ago that he would be willing to step up and come here tonight and do what, well, I'm not going to make his announcement. I'll let him make his announcement. But to me, it was a great reaffirmation of the work that we've done, that we have the ideas, that we have the record to go out there, and we have the leadership skills, and we have the record of leadership to get this country back on the right track. And I'm excited to be here with Matt. I want to thank him for really, in some respects, many respects, being a model. I watched his campaign. I participated. We did several events together after he got the nomination, and we worked together and trying to help him get elected. And he ran a grassroots campaign for Secretary of State. A lot of folks did not give him a lot of chance to win this race. And even up until the very end, I was here, so I know. The talk was, well, there are other better funded challengers for other offices. And Matt's a good guy. Boy, it's a shame he just hasn't gotten the resources. Boy, do I know that. He hasn't gotten the resources, but he's a good guy. We really like him, and he really deserves it. And well, I've been hearing a lot about that. He's a good guy. We really like him, but gee, it's too bad he's not going to win. And guess what? He won. And because the people of Iowa look past the money. It was one of the things I hear from people all the time, because I know there's a lot of candidates doing a lot of television advertising. And I found out from day one, from Matt's campaign and from talking to folks around here, you can't buy Iowa. You got to earn Iowa. And we'll see that. I really believe that. And we earned Matt's announcement here today. And I'm looking forward to what he has to say. And I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, you've made this the best day of the campaign, and I want to thank you for being here. And I introduce you to the Secretary of State of Iowa, Matt Schultz.
Well, I guess it's already kind of leaked out, so to speak, but I am announcing today, and have announced, that I am going to be voting and supporting Senator Rick Santorum on January 3rd in the Iowa caucuses. The first time I heard about Senator Santorum, I was a young intern. Yes, younger than I am now. I was a young intern on Capitol Hill working for Senator Mike Crapo. And we were in the Russell building, and Senator Crapo's office was right across the hall from Senator Santorum's office. And the buzz when I got there, even Senator Crapo's staff would talk about how this great young conservative senator was right across the hall, and maybe I'd get lucky and see him one day. So I started to learn about Senator Santorum at that time, and I've watched him, and I've watched what he's done here in Iowa. And I can tell you, Senator Santorum and I have a lot in common. I tend to like the underdog, and slow and steady wins the race. And Senator Santorum is a strong conservative, and that's what really brings me to wanting to be here and be beside him, because I believe that we need people like Senator Santorum here in leading this country. We're in difficult times, and we need somebody who can stand up, who's a scrapper, who's willing to go and fight this good fight, because we need a new president of the United States. Senator Santorum has a proven conservative record, serving in the U.S. Senate and the House of Representatives. He fought for welfare reform. He's been a strong voice for the pro-life movement. And these are the same kinds of principles that are dear to my heart. And I've been watching him work hard in Iowa. And I was joking with him before. He's been to 99 counties this year, and I've been to 98. So he's one up on me. But this is the kind of dedication, this is the kind of leader we need. Somebody who's not afraid to get out and be amongst us and take the tough questions. And so my endorsement is a reflection on what kind of man Senator Santorum is. There are things I like about all of the candidates, but there's something special about Senator Santorum. And that is why I'm here today. And I'm asking all Iowans to give him a second look and to listen and keep asking the tough questions. Listen to his answers. And I know if you do, you'll feel the same way I do, and hopefully go and caucus for him on January 3rd. So I just want to thank everybody for coming tonight and for listening, and I guess we'll open it up for any questions that anybody might have. I know there's a lot of press here. Thank you, Senator. I told the Senator, before he says, would your wife like to come up? I said, she doesn't want to come up, but I will recognize her, and thankfully he reminded me. So I do need to recognize my beautiful wife, Zola Schultz. She has been a stalwart, and having 4 kids and a wife like her, it completes me, and that's one of the reasons why a guy like Senator Santorum shares these same kinds of convictions, and why I want him to be President of the United States. So, is there anybody have questions? I saw a hand. Yes.
Yeah. Senator Santorum, last week Governor Christie was in town in support of someone else that is running against you or with you, and he had commented that he believed that a governor would be a better executive leader. Would you please respond to what Governor Christie had said about someone being a governor as compared to someone who's a legislator, and why you believe that someone who is a legislator, who has experience and your own executive experience, of why you are the person that America actually needs to have?
Well, thank you for that, and I would just say this, that I've served in Washington under governors, and that turned out to be a problem, because a lot of governors come to Washington, D.C. and think they're governor of America, and want to do in Washington what they did in their state capitals, like run the education system, run the healthcare system, run the welfare system. Those are things that shouldn't be done. I always say one of the biggest mistakes I made was to actually vote to actually have more government control of, with the No Child Left Behind bill of education. That was a mistake. We need to get these programs out of Washington, and governors tend to come and bring them more to Washington. It's really been interesting, because Washington continually gets bigger as we elect governor after governor after governor. And then we wonder, why is Washington getting bigger? Because all these governors keep doing things in Washington that they were doing at the state level. And we need is someone who understands what the role of the federal government is, which is limited. And we need to get those things. I don't have the answer. I don't have the answer of how we can best administer the Medicaid system in Iowa. But I bet you Governor Branstad and the state legislature here would take a pretty good crack at it and do a better job than we could in Washington. And so we need to look at having someone who understands federalism, who understands getting those responsibilities back to the state level, taking these programs, capping them, cutting them, capping them, sending them back to the states, getting rid of the mandates. That includes education and Medicaid and food stamps. And there's 72 means-tested entitlement programs in Washington, D.C., most of which are run by the states, and most of which are micromanaged by the federal government. We need to look at every single one of them. And whether we create one huge block grant or whether we do some in categories, but we got to stop this being governor of the United States and get back to the federal model that worked well for a long time in this country.
Thank you.
Is there any members of the press? We want to get them first, since this is a press thing. Yeah, go ahead in the back.
Secretary Schultz, I was wondering, obviously you endorsed Mitt Romney in 2008. What changed your mind this time around to endorse Senator Santorum?
That's a great question. These are different times, different candidates, and different issues. And to be honest with you, this is really not a reflection on any other candidate in the race. This is a reflection on who Rick Santorum is. And I've evaluated like I said before, there are things I like about every candidate. But I've evaluated them each individually, just like I did in 2008. And I've come to the conclusion that Rick Santorum should be our president.
Yeah, Shoshana.
Did Mitt Romney come to you and try to get your endorsement? Did you guys have a conversation or not?
I've had a conversation with almost every one of the candidates, and I've appreciated that. And that's what's so great about being here in Iowa. And like I said, there are things I like about every candidate. But Rick Santorum is the person who most reflects the kind of person I am. And that's why I'm supporting him.
But did you specifically come to you and ask for your endorsement? With Jason last time?
I had a conversation with Governor Romney, like I did with many of the other candidates, and I enjoyed that conversation with him. But again, I'm just glad to be supporting Rick Santorum. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Some people have expressed some concern about supporting you, Senator, because campaign hasn't sort of taken off. Do you think that could change, or is there enough time to sort of sway that opinion? And whose support do you think you could take from the most likely?
Given what's happening this year, we could probably have one or two more bubbles between now and January of candidates rising and falling. So, no, I think there's plenty of time. Every poll that I've seen shows that 60 to 70% of people here in Iowa are still undecided. You've seen just here in Iowa as you have in the country. One candidate go from 0 to 60 and then back down to 0, and then same thing, up and down and up and down. So people are still searching, and that's why I'm so excited about Matt's coming forward now and endorsing us now, and we've had other fine people step up, and we've got some we hope and that there are more people coming next week, and other folks are going to step forward and start building on the momentum that Matt has started here tonight. And he's a leader here in this state, and I think you'll find some folks following the leaders. And Matt's done his job. And like I said, he's talked to every candidate, just like a lot of Iowans have, and they're starting to make their decisions. And I think a lot of folks respect Matt and the decisions he made here today, and we're hopeful that other people will do exactly what he asked, and that is take a good second look, or in some cases a first look, and see how we match up against everybody else. And I'm confident when they do that, they'll find one person who, as I said, I may not be the flashiest guy, I may be a little boring when it comes to because I'm consistent. I don't have a lot. My record isn't Swiss cheese. I mean, it's solid. It's a solid block of cheese. And I've been married 21 years, got 7 kids. Go home to my wife and kids at night, and coach Little League. That's not a lot of bling, but we're conservative, we're consistent. We've led with principle. We've gotten things done, and I think that's what I'm fairly confident now that I've spent enough time here in Iowa that that's what the people of Iowa ultimately want. And when they see that, we're going to do very well here in these caucuses.
Senator, I just have a question for you about conservative Iowa. I don't quite understand how Newt Gingrich is getting the support that he's getting, and I know how much you love answering questions about other candidates, so I'm going to ask you this one. Newt's numbers are pretty high, and with his marriage record and ethics background, how do you explain that in Iowa?
Well, look, all I can say is that there hasn't been a vote cast yet. And a lot of times you see people rise in polls because the media's paying attention to that candidate, and they're getting a lot of airtime. And as a result of that, there's a piqued interest. But what will happen with all of these candidates is when that happens, you come under scrutiny, and people will take a look at the whole package. Newt Gingrich is a friend of mine, and I have a lot of respect for Newt. And people are gonna look at all of the things that he's done in his past with respect to his record. They're gonna look at what his proposals are. They're gonna look at his record as the speaker and as a leader, and see whether that's the kind of person or that's the kind of record that we would like to see in Washington, D.C. To answer maybe more fully your question, yeah, I was a senator, I was a legislator, but I was also elected by my peers as a leader, and I was a leader, and getting things done and working to move the ball on a variety of conservative issues. So look at that experience too, match that up with some of the other candidates in the race, and we think we'll do very well. Yes, sir.
Maybe you guys could both respond to this, but does it say anything about sort of the traditional Iowa kind of campaign model that 2 of the 3 guys right now at the top of the polls are guys who haven't spent very much time here, and Governor Romney and Speaker Gingrich?
Let him take that one.
I think you look at the polls and it only tells you one thing, that there are a couple of people who have a consistent amount of support, but you're just seeing ups and downs and ups and downs. I don't think you can trust a lot in the polls. I know I'm not looking at the polls. They're very volatile, and that's why I'm looking more at who the person is, what they stand for, and whether their beliefs line up with mine. And I think Iowans are going to do that, and that's why I think Iowa is special. The polls do give you a glimpse in time, but there's still a lot of time left. And in politics, things can change in a day. So, you know, I really think that you can't trust the polls right now.
Senator, do you agree with that?
I would agree with that, and one of the things I was told by, well, Matt, in my conversations, Kim Lehman is here, who told me the same things, which is, you know, don't pay attention to the polls, just, you know, trust Iowans. Trust them that, you know, that they will do their job, and the folks who are going to caucus take this responsibility seriously, and they're not going to go with who, you know, the latest flavor of the month is by the national media. They're going to make their decision based upon what they think is in the best interest of their country, and has the, and I believe it here in Iowa, has the solid conservative values that reflect the caucus goer in this state. Yes, sir.
Mr. Secretary, I have a question. We haven't seen too many of your colleagues, statewide politicians, come out to endorse other candidates. Have you had conversations with other elected officials, the statewide, trying to lobby for support for Senator Santorum, or do you expect other candidates to come out, other politicians to come out soon to make endorsements? I'd
only be speculating on what other political office holders might do. I have not been out trying to lobby for anybody yet because I hadn't made my decision. Now that I have, you will see me probably making some phone calls to try and get support for the senator. So I hope that we will see some coming soon, but I'd only be speculating.
Can you lend any organizational support or anything like that to the senator's campaign, given your experience running statewide here already?
Well, he's already doing the right things, going county to county and meeting with the people. That matters here in Iowa. Obviously, I'm going to be asking those who are close to me to help the senator, but that'll ultimately be their decision. And I hope that they'll take a first or second look at the senator, and I hope all Iowans will.
Someone in the back had a question.
Yes, my question. Yes,
Were you? Okay, I'm sorry.
yes, I'm good.
Okay. Oh, there you are.
Well, just to
Yeah.
kind of follow up on that, Matt, do you think Bob Vanderplat, Congressman King, other statewide officials, should they get off the sidelines and endorse?
Well, this is what I would say to Congressman King and Bob Vanderplat. It's time to endorse Senator Santorum.
I have nothing to add to that statement.
Excellent.
Anybody else in the media? I just want to make sure the media gets their questions. All right. Anybody else?
This young man right here had
This
his
young man had a question. All right.
Mr. Santorum, what would you do to help with the taxes and the jobs and that the people wouldn't lose their jobs?
Did you plant him?
This is great. Thank you very much for that question. Well, actually, we put together, I said I may be a little boring, but our proposals are bold. We've put together some bold proposals to try to get this economy going, because that's what we need. We need to get our, we have an economy right now that the debt is now equal, it's a 1-to-1 equal to the size of the economy. I mean, that's you have countries over in Europe that they're making go through austerity measures because of this imbalance, and yet here we are in America, and we're just trying to inflate the currency and print more currency so we don't have to run into the problems that Greece and Italy and the other countries, Spain and others, are going through over there. So this is a serious problem, and you need bold leadership and a bold plan to take the bull by the horns. We've put forward a plan we're going to cut $5 trillion over 5 years. We're going to get this budget deficit under control. We're going to get to a balanced budget and rein in government spending. We're going to set priorities. We're going to get responsibility out of Washington, D.C. and give it back to the states through the entitlement reform I've talked about. We're going to take discretionary spending and cut it dramatically, get rid of a lot of functions. I mentioned education is one that the federal government should be getting out of with respect to primary and secondary education. I talk about the cuts we need to make to the Labor Department. That's another one. We don't talk about the Labor Department. I mean, you talk about a department that is just exploded in this administration and in its micromanagement of how businesses operate in this country. One of the other areas, it's not a big department, but an important one, and one that I think is in need of uprooting and redoing, is the State Department. Throw on top of that, we're going to put a freeze on hiring. We're going to do many reforms within the federal workforce. Freeze on pay, no pay increases. We're going to cut the federal workforce. We're going to take, for example, the pension system that's in place right now. Private employers don't have these kinds of pension systems anymore. They don't have pensions and a 401k account. Well, federal employees have both. We can't afford this. You're pricing federal workers. The amount of money we spend on federal workers is more than what the equivalent on the private sector gets. So we need to phase out, starting with new employees, we need to phase out the that pension benefit. It's simply not something that we should be asking folks who don't work for the federal government, who don't have that benefit, to pay it for those who do work for the federal government. I don't know, I always used to remind kids who would come to meet with me, I'd say, you know what? I work for you, you don't work for me. And the taxpayer and federal workers have to understand that they work for the taxpayers, and to demand the taxpayers to pay them more than what they get is wrong. We're also going to have a very bold plan on the economy. We're going to eliminate the IRS in the sense that we're going to get rid of the old tax code and replace it with two tax rates, 10%, which is the current low rate, and 28%, which was the top rate under Ronald Reagan. I always say it was good enough for Ronald Reagan, and he could get it through a Democratic Congress, then we can get it through this Congress. And you throw on top of that a simplified code with 5 deductions. You take the corporate tax, cut it in half, and make it a net profits tax, and you eliminate the tax on corporations completely. You're going to get manufacturing jobs started in this country. We'll turn this economy around. We'll cut the federal deficit. We'll get the private sector growing, and we'll see the unemployment rate go down. We'll see the deficit go down because revenues are going to go up because people are making money and being employed, and means-tested entitlement programs will go down, not only because of the reforms we made, but also because there will be less people who will need those benefits. So that's the dynamic plan, and I'm excited because I feel very confident that the way we've put this together will get strong bipartisan support to get it done. Anybody else?
Senator,
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Just one more question. You obviously said that the polls are very volatile, and you've been sort of dismissive, saying that there's still time left to rise. But do you see a rise in the polls by a certain date to convince sort of voters or supporters out there that it's safe to go with you, people who want to elect someone who's going to be a winner or someone who's going to be able to take the nomination?
Yeah, I think we've seen already some progress in the polls, and again, this is going to be a very volatile situation between now and then. And is there a number? I don't really peg my hopes on a number. What we're doing is going out and we're building a great grassroots organization. We now have a lot of folks who have joined us in the virtual world. We've got a lot of folks and bloggers and folks who are on social networking sites who have really amped up our presence there. We feel and we see that momentum. We know it's out there, and I know people here in Iowa are feeling it. Our crowds have been much bigger. I was just in Newton. Last time I was in Newton, I think we had about a dozen people. We had about 50 people today in the middle of the afternoon at a coffee shop. We filled the place up. So we've had a couple of meetings this week, 3 meetings this week. We had over 100 people come to it. It's just we weren't getting crowds like that. We're getting them now, and I think that tells you that there's something going on. Our office is filled. We've got people phoning phoning and making phone calls. Real people, not robocalls. Real people calling real Iowans. Real Iowans calling real Iowans, which we think makes a much bigger difference than some of the automated calls that are going out there right now. Yes, sir.
Why are veterans issues on the back burner with all the political candidates?
Well, as I mentioned before, we're not cutting defense, and we're not cutting our military, our pay and benefits, and that includes pay and benefits for our veterans. And I did a press conference the other day out at Fort Des Moines and made the point that the principal role of the federal government is to protect this country, and that means we need to make sure that we have the resources available to have a military that can do that job. that we pay our men and women in uniform a pay that is that's at least somewhat commensurate for their service, and that the benefits that we promised are benefits we keep. I was just over at in Cedar Falls at UNI, and had a veteran stand up and say, I'm here on the GI Bill. Are you going to cut the GI Bill? I said, we made a promise. You did your part of the deal. Now it's our time to do our part of the deal. And I say that to veterans. I say that to men and women who've signed up and protected this country. That unlike this president, who seems to be continually going after veterans' benefits, we're going to stand by our veterans. We're going to stand by the folks who have made 6, 7, 8 tours of duty. I'll take one more and then we'll wrap it up. Yeah, well, I'll take 2 more. 1, 2, and then we'll wrap it up. Go ahead.
Senator, I was curious if you thought that Paul Ryan's proposal on Medicare was right-wing social engineering.
I wouldn't have used those terms. I know I've heard that term somewhere. I can't quite remember where I heard it. But no, I quickly embraced the Ryan plan. I embraced it without condition. Would I do everything exactly what Paul did? Well, no, I wouldn't do anything that anybody else would exactly do, but because I have my own ideas on how to do things. But the general gist of what Paul Ryan is doing, I wholeheartedly support. Most of the things I'd actually change is timing. I think we got to move faster. I know Paul was writing a political document to try to get unanimous support within the Republican caucus. We're trying to get the job done. And when you have a deficit situation that we're dealing with right now, and a debt situation in this country, we cannot wait to do some of the reforms that Paul phases in and doesn't start phasing in some cases for a long time. We need to move those things forward. So I wouldn't do it exactly the way that he suggested, but what he has suggested are good, solid ideas that I'm happy to go out and support. In fact, I have been supporting. A lot of the things that he suggested are things that I proposed in similar fashion when I was in the Congress. Last question in the back. Yes, sir.
Yes. In your list of government agencies and departments that you thought were ripe for reform, I heard you mention the State Department. What in your view are the issues with the State Department?
Well, okay, I'll try to keep this short. The State Department has, in my opinion, is full of a bunch of people who are not necessarily working in the best interest of the values of our country. Now, part of that is coming from this administration, but I found that to be the case under the prior administration. That there are embedded people in the bureaucracy in the State Department who have a very different agenda than I believe most of the American people have with respect to our role around the world, and have a very different agenda than I would as President of the United States. And it's as you know, it's very difficult to remove people in these agencies. And so sometimes the best thing you have to do is just simply eliminate a lot of the agencies and departments and take these functions away if they're doing things that are antithetical to the values that I support. And we see this with the State Department and their work at the United Nations. We see it with the State Department with their work with individual countries, where, in my opinion, I have seen far too many cases where the interests that are being served out of our State Department are the interests of the countries which they interact with instead of the interests of the people of this country. And so there are good people in the State Department. There's just not enough of them. And there aren't, in my opinion, that's an area where we can. And you've heard me say I'm not someone who believes we should hack away at foreign aid or start from a zero-based budget. That's not my point. My point is that it is an institution that is run by folks who don't represent and reflect the values that are the mainstream values of this country. And if we are a country conducting foreign policy, I gave my first introductory speech on national security, was that the role that I would promote is to promote American values around the world. And if you have a State Department that doesn't share those values, those traditional American values, it's hard to promote them around the world. And that's why we need to take a meat axe to the State Department, and I will do that. Thank you all very much, guys.